Good morning, viewers. Sage here. Welcome to the Executive Corner Expert Talks by 𝐿𝐴 TV. I'm Sage, and this is the guest who will bring you today live is Mr. Zi Li, the co-founder and commercial director at Radetec Diagnostics, a Melbourne-based biotech company specialising in producing and commercialising advanced luminescent nanoparticles called quantum dots. And as you know, we bring you the industry leaders, successful business owners, market and equity advocates, all under the one roof to help you discover the insights of the stock markets and technological developments. So today's guest is Mr. Zi Li. Welcome, Mr. Li.
Thank you, Sage. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you for making time to join us today. I'm sure you're very busy as a commercial director of Radetec Diagnostics. Let's jump straight into the discussion. I'm very curious to find out more about quantum dots, often referred to as QDs. They're tiny particles of semiconducting material that display unique optical properties. So QDs were first discovered in 1980, but found an application in medicine only in recent years. So on this note, would you please tell our audience what QD technology is and what are the key features of quantum dots?
Yes, that's right, Sage. So as you know, but you are very right. Quantum dots were first discovered in the 1980s. So they were basically fluorescent particles or nanoparticles that have a range of potential applications. So as a matter of fact, they have actually already been successfully applied in the LED industry, especially by huge conglomerate Samsung. So some of the viewers might have heard of the so-called QTV by Samsung. And in that Q actually stands for quantum dots. So basically, Samsung was utilizing quantum dots' superior fluorescent properties. So basically, to use it in the LED space. So the color contrast of that QLED is actually a lot better than some of the traditional materials that's used in the LED space. However, quantum dots have only been recently applied, or teams around the world have only recently been trying to apply it in the medical imaging space, and we are certainly one of the pioneers in that space. So basically, we are a team of three that's originally came out of the University of Melbourne. So we actually have a world-leading technology to basically optimize quantum dots to make it able to be used in a biological setting. So what we are trying to do is basically to use quantum dots and leverage its superior fluorescent properties to use it to combine with antibodies and make it a material that's able to make quick and fast and inexpensive diagnosis to a range of infectious and non-infectious diseases. So that's essentially what we've been trying to do since our founding of Radetec Diagnostics back in 2016.
Amazing work. Thank you so much for summarising and breaking down that very complex subject for us. So Radetec uses quantum dots to develop 2-point-of-care tests specifically based on lateral flow technology. Which infections in particular do these tests detect, please? Yeah,
so initially when we first founded Radetec, we were aiming for a hidden pandemic, which is the sexually transmitted diseases. So obviously everybody now is focused on the COVID-19 pandemic, which is probably more visible. But the STD pandemic is pretty much a hidden one, in the bedrooms. But it's happening all over the world, and it's actually increasing in prevalence all over the world. So we actually are targeting two of the most common STDs in the world. The number one most common one is chlamydia, which is a very common disease. And it's, for example, the CDC of America estimates that up to 60% of American women have been infected by chlamydia. And what's worse is that, chlamydia actually is a disease that doesn't show up as very symptomatic in a big proportion of the people who are infected. So most people don't even know that they have been infected, but if left untreated, they can cause a range of diseases such as infertility or cervical cancer and many other complications. We are also targeting the second most common STD in the world, being gonorrhea. So in that case, usually the people have mild to severe symptoms, but these are the two most common STDs in the world. So Radetec have been developing a what we call a multiplex test. That is, we are able to test for these two diseases on a single strip of the lateral flow strip, which is very similar to what people are familiar with, which is the pregnancy sticks that people can buy from supermarket shelves. So what we are trying to develop is a product that's very similar to the pregnancy test that you can buy for from Woolworths and Coles for $20. But we will have a product similar to that, but test for chlamydia and gonorrhea. So that's always been our original goal and our main product line. So we are actually at the moment about 80% complete on our R&D. We are developing the product in joint venture with a leading university in Australia, and now we will be launching the products in the next 3 to 6 months. And another big development for us was obviously COVID-19. So since the start of the COVID pandemic, we decided to basically allocate some of the resources that's originally planned for STDs. So we actually use the same quantum dots technology, and we have been able to develop a COVID-19 rapid test. So this is actually an antigen test as compared to those antibody tests that's currently available in the market. So we are able to test for COVID-19 under 10 minutes, inexpensively and quickly. So this COVID-19 test is currently now already manufactured by us, by our contract manufacturing partner. So actually, we are currently testing the COVID-19 kit in the US and in India, where I guess these are two of the most, in terms of the number of infections, they are probably the number one and number two in the world. So we are actually, as we speak today, we are waiting for more data from our partners in US and India. So yeah, if all goes well, then we will be launching the product after getting approval from the FDAs and the CEs and the IMCRs in India. And then we'll be this will happen to be our first product, even though we originally planned for the STDs to be our first. That's our latest development.
That is amazing news. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. And what timing to come out with your test right now when the health infrastructure needs this type of support. Incredible timing. Yes. And I did get told recently that the UK has some at-home tests for COVID that are actually manufactured in Australia as well. So it's interesting to see when Australia will get some at-home tests as well. But
you're absolutely right.
Yeah. The work that you're doing with the sexually transmitted diseases sounds incredible as well, and thank you for sharing those worldwide stats. I had no idea that is how common those two diseases are. Well,
that's right. They call it a hidden pandemic. So
right.
Yeah.
And just one thing about your QD, your quantum dot tests, will they require laboratory setups and blood to assess the diseases? And now that we understand the various tests that can be detected, would you please explain how Radetec's tests allow users to assess their diseases accurately and inexpensively?
Yeah, sure, that's a great question. So actually Radetec stands for rapid detection. That's how we came up with the name. So the idea for any point of care test, including ours, is that it will not require any elaborate or professional laboratory setup. It will not require any professional or trained medical professional to perform those tests. The very idea of them is that the average person, the average mom and dad, is able to purchase these tests and perform the procedures themselves in the privacy of their own homes. So in terms of STD testing, that's particularly relevant. So obviously, especially I guess in some culturally more conservative countries, people feel embarrassed, or there's a certain amount of cultural stigma attached to STDs. So people are reluctant to go to a sexual health clinic or go to an actual hospital to get tested because of the perceived embarrassment there. So the idea is for them to be able to buy these tests and do it in the privacy of their home and be able to sort of read the results in under 10 minutes. And another big advantage of any POCT test is that, it will be non-intrusive. So we will not require any blood samples, either from the fingertip blood or any other way. So in our first product, this chlamydia and gonorrhea test, it's intended to be used as IVD, so it's non-intrusive. The sample collection process is very simple. So we actually will rely on vaginal swab samples. So it will be non-intrusive, and then it will be easy to collect the sample. So basically, users will collect, they will have in our packaging, we have a swab that's ready for the user, and they just need to collect, a bit of swab sample from, a vaginal swab, and then basically we have a buffer solution to dilute that sample, and then, that's when that diluted sample is dropped on the what we call the sample collection pad on the strip. Then, all the user has to do is to wait for 5 to 10 minutes for the lateral flow process to happen, and then it will be very similar to the pregnancy ones. So if one line, a very bright red line, if one line shows up on the right-hand side of the strip, then that's a negative result. If two bright red lines appear, that's a positive result. So that will require, probably a confirmation in a clinic setting and the immediate treatment. So that's our so-called B2C setting, so direct to consumer setting. So the idea is to sell these products, in supermarkets, in automatic vending machines, through e-commerce, so that people have their privacy protected. Another setting would be B2B. So we would be selling these products to institutional organizations such as the public health authorities. In Australia's case, will be the sexual health clinics. We've spoken to big charitable organizations like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. So and even the WHO. So the idea is for them to purchase these quick tests in bulk and go to resource poor regions and countries to basically do population screening and control the spread of the disease. So that's basically our idea.
Fantastic. It's incredible the time that it'll take. Only 10 minutes to achieve a result. I think that is spectacular, and the fact that you've been able to come up with this breakthrough technology now is just amazing news. I'm sure it'll be music to a lot of people's ears. And you've touched on this a little bit, Mr. Lee. While COVID-19 has wreaked havoc across economies, Radetec has been on the mission to contribute to the fight against this deadly virus. Could you tell us a little bit more about the COVID-19 antigen test you touched on before and how efficient it has been so far?
Yeah, so that's a great question. Obviously, that's something that's in everybody's mind. So essentially, as we are aware, in Australia, we are, a resource-rich country. So most of the COVID-19 tests actually have been performed by with the gold standard, which is the PCR. So that will require a professionally set up pathology lab with expensive machinery. So and that, as people know, it will take 2 to 3 business days before you hear about your results. So obviously that's not efficient. That's very expensive, and that that's in terms of disease control, the significant time lag there is problematic. So basically, what we want to do is that we want to use these point of care tests to be performed on the spot. People only have to wait for 5 to 10 minutes to get the results, and immediate isolation or treatment or kind of disease control procedure. So essentially, such point of care tests have been widely used in a lot of European jurisdictions and in a lot of Asian jurisdictions as well. So the idea is to perform these tests, especially in crowded spaces like airports, train stations. So a significant example right now is that most of the Italian airports right now, they actually require the passengers before they board a plane to actually be tested on the spot using the point of care test. So this will have a significant disease control advantage compared to a laboratory setting. So this is something that we think COVID-19, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, is something to stay. It's not going to go away anytime soon. So we might have to sort of coexist with this infection for probably many years to come, just like those, H1N1, those, flus that's happening in the northern hemisphere every winter. So the idea is for these tests to be coexisting along with other point-of-care tests that are already in place for those flus. So COVID is likely to become, yet another flu out there, even though it's not going to, I guess, hopefully in the next year or two, it's not going to affect the majority of the population worldwide, but it's going to be something there. So this will require regular performance or regular tests on a large scale, so that this disease can truly be, I guess, contained. So that's the setting that we want, because especially we are looking at the 80% of the world is developing, right? So not everybody is able to afford $80 per test in a PCR setting as we are doing right now here. So down the track, it will have to be a quick, expensive test that's able to be performed on hundreds of millions of people worldwide. So now we are tracking relatively well. We are well on track. So as I said earlier, we are waiting for data from our partners in America and in India. So we hopefully will be able to apply for regulatory approval, and then to roll out the test on a large scale. We can bring down the manufacturing cost to well under $2 per test, so that we can make the test available inexpensively.
That's fantastic news, Mr. Lee, because reports are that the COVID-19 test has not been very comfortable for people having it getting cells from up the nostrils and in the cheeks. It's not been a very pleasant experience. So this sounds like a much more pleasant experience and much faster. And I also saw another product that allows people to apply for blood tests for STDs without referrals from doctors, but that is very costly. It was about 170 Australian dollars. So this sounds like a much better option. So how is Radetec Diagnostics improving the well-being of society? We do have to start wrapping up here, but just finally, if we can fit this in, how is Radetec Diagnostics improving the well-being of society and helping in the elimination of prejudices and taboos? You did touch on this before, but was there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, so we are actually, apart from what we've been doing, on the STD space and the COVID space, we're actually developing quite a few exciting products in our product pipeline. So I guess this is a relatively early stage, but we are actually applying the same technology in to test for certain biomarkers in certain cancers and even Parkinson's disease, believe it or not. So we are currently working with a national institute over there in Singapore. So they have some exciting technical breakthroughs, and they want to we want to combine our tech with this to come up with this biomarker test for cancer and Parkinson's. So that's going to be a massive market as well. So hopefully we can I guess maximize the utility of our technology to apply it in as wide a range of applications as possible, to bring, I guess, to prevent diseases, to get early diagnosis, so that we can significantly reduce treatment costs and suffering for society. So that's our belief. We are not there to cure anything. We are not there to even replace the existing gold standard. What we are doing is we are bringing down the cost. We are basically give people an alternative, or give doctors an early diagnostic option, so that many things can be treated early, and it will significantly reduce costs later on. And so that's the mission that we are on, and we've been doing that for 4.5 years, and we've raised 2 rounds of venture capital funding from professional investors. And I think I'm very grateful that the investment community and also the scientific community have lent us so much support. We are working with top universities in Australia and overseas. We are already revenue positive. We've already been selling our quantum dots and our scientific instruments to overseas institutions, in the scientific community. So we are very grateful that we continue to receive investment support. So that's the mission we are on. So I feel like this is probably good timing for us, and this is something that we really should be doing, and should really persevere in doing in the future.
Absolutely. Thank you for making time for sharing your worthwhile effort at Radetec Diagnostics. Can our viewers actually contribute to the investment through your website? Is that possible at the moment?
No, at the moment, we are actually raising our third round of financing. So basically, in the last 2 rounds, we've been able to achieve a series of milestones, and we now have an actual product being the COVID-19 test on the table. So our existing investors are very happy about that, and we have, as I said, those exciting product lines. So we are launching the STDs ones before the end of the year, and we are launching the biomarker test for cancer and Parkinson very, very soon as well. So at the moment, we are welcome. We welcome investors or new investors to support us. I guess it will be. I want to if there are viewers out there interested in talking to us, then I'm more than happy to speak to them in more detail. So to have our detailed information made available to them. So we are raising the third round, and it's likely to be the last round of financing we'll ever need, because as soon as we raise this amount, then we'll pay for the clinical trials in the US and in Asia, and then we will be able to generate significant revenue, and then we will be able to recycle the money or the capital and go back to R&D and to get all of the products that I've talked about and make them all available on the market, and start basically generating income to as a positive cycle to invest into more R&D, into more exciting products. So we are raising the next round. So if there are investors out there interested in talking to us in more detail, then we welcome them for sure.
Fantastic, Mr. Lee. Thank you for making time for us, and I really appreciate your insights on the show today. And viewers, if you've just joined us,
Sage.
We just had a very interesting discussion with Mr. 𝐿𝐥𝐬, Lee, the co-founder and commercial director at Radetec Diagnostics, who are doing some very important work in regards to developing quantum dot testing for COVID-19, sexually transmittable diseases, and early detection and prevention, hopefully, for bowel cancer and Parkinson's as well. So very important work there. The full interview can be watched via our YouTube channel. As usual, 𝐿𝐴𝐚 Media. And as we say, stay apprised and invest wise with 𝐿𝐴𝐚.